Get ready, because we're about to see something bloody incredible. It all kicks off with a chick taking down a bloke in a judo match without even breaking a sweat.
And taking it all in was June, our main guy.
He reckons judo might actually be pretty sick,
Since he clearly saw how the chick chucked her opponent through the air with barely any effort, and even though he's heard his new high school's got a judo club, he still reckons it's missing a few good punches. Figuring that throwing fists is the only thing he really needs to know.
The big issue is that his mum made it crystal clear that if he got expelled again for acting up, she'd ban him from ever having chicken at home, and that absolute terror of his mum is more than enough to stop him from ever mucking up again.
So, 0 fights at this new school. Right now, his only goal is to be an absolute model student. Even so, he still decided to pop down an alleyway to bash some bloke before heading to class. Pay close attention here. 2 blokes were kicking the absolute crap out of a poor kid, totally pissed off that they had to do their dirty work outside of school. His mate replied that they didn't have a choice. It was all because of that crazy chick from the judo club, and they both knew they didn't stand a chance against her in a fight.
The bald bloke walked up to the kid named Subin, telling him that his school life was pretty rough.
Things used to be way better, but now they've got to bust a gut just to meet up with a loser like him.
The other bully asked his mate not to hit him in the face.
Or they'd be in massive trouble with UNAM, though he was getting pretty annoyed with the bloke standing right next to him. June apologised for interrupting him while they were busy, said he was only there to ask for a light, and immediately clocked the bald bloke with a massive punch, knocking him completely out cold.
The blonde kid went totally speechless.
And June blamed the bald bloke for giving him a fright like that, so...
Come with me, you're going to see how the blonde kid just can't wrap his head around his mate getting dropped in a single punch.
Back at school, you and I asked Subin if you like bud.
He said yeah, assuming he'd force him to go buy some, but Yoon made it clear he was just asking out of pure curiosity.
He didn't get why he was offering to buy it. Still, he wasn't going to turn it down either. He asked him to show him the way to the tuck shop, making Subin burst into tears because he knew this bloke was planning to shake him down.
The worst part is, they're both in the same class, so there's absolutely no avoiding it. Out of nowhere, Yoon and I are about to see UNAM, since he'd been hearing that name bloody everywhere. Subin figured he already knew that this Incheon High School is famous for its judo club, packed with elite athletes known right across the country.
Pay close attention. UNAM is number 1. She's an irreplaceable athlete, and even though she's only in her first year,
She absolutely smashed it at the Youth Sports Festival, the President's Cup, the Minister's Cup, and literally any national tournament you could think of.
She even got nominated for the national youth squad. Now, she's an absolute legend because she's never lost an official match. She's so ridiculously strong that everyone drops in a single hit, no matter their gender or weight class. That's why they call her the First Strike Empress. Her videos rack up millions of views. He told him all this with massive hype. You and I would think Yoon'd be impressed, right? Not at all. He recognised the video from that morning, but he doesn't get what the massive fuss is about if she's just a chick.
Subin got pretty outraged hearing that, repeating that UNAM is a top-tier athlete. Plus, he straight up warned him that he'd get into some serious trouble.
That only fired up Yun's competitive side, who doesn't get why he'd be in any trouble at all. At the end of the day, just because someone plays a sport doesn't mean they know how to handle themselves in a street fight. Besides, the idea that UNAM can beat anyone, regardless of gender or weight class, is pure rubbish. If she's the Empress, he's right up there with her.
All of a sudden,
The bold bloke and his goons rocked up to the classroom looking proper pissed off, checking all over the place to make sure the crazies from the judo club weren't hanging around.
Once he realised they weren't, he threatened everyone. And trust me, you and I both know this is about to get completely out of hand.
Come with me. Everyone went dead silent. Later on, that bald bloke tracked down Subin.
John figured his classmate was super popular since so many guys came looking for him, but the blonde bloke demanded he hand back his ciggies and his lighter.
June swore black and blue that they'd never met. Matter of fact, he just moved in today and hasn't got a clue about any lighter or ciggies. But stick with me, because you and I are about to see something bloody incredible. But he told Subin he could take him away since they were looking for him. Mind you, he did ask them to get along and not scrap because classes were about to kick off. Come check out this absolute madness with me. The bald bloke absolutely lost it over his attitude and decided to have a crack at him, dead set certain he only went down earlier because he was caught off guard. But June dodged the swing, making the thug completely smash his own hand. He used that split second to deliver a brutal counterattack right to the guts.
The impact was so bloody massive, it knocked him out cold on the spot, making Yoon regret ever promising he wouldn't get into punch-ups at school.
These blokes just wouldn't stop throwing hands.
So he ended up getting dragged right into the thick of it.
If he gets transferred to another high school again, he swears he's going to make them all pay.
Then he asked Subin what he thought about that brutal one-hit knockout. But the blonde bloke completely lost the plot and ordered everyone to attack. The whole ruckus got so out of hand that the other students came running over to watch the scrap.
One guy tried to jump him from behind, but Yoon hit him with a spinning elbow. The students were absolutely losing their minds, having no clue what the deal was with the new kid's stats.
They even reckoned he might be on the exact same level as Yoonam herself.
The bloke in black admits he heard the guy got expelled from his old high school, plus he's wearing the Changgun uniform, and word goes around that Yoon is an absolute psycho when it comes to fighting.
He got kicked out for causing a massive scene while teaching those bullies a lesson. And to be honest, part of me's pretty stoked they're finally getting a taste of their own medicine.
Though Yoon really ought to know when to call it cleats.
There's absolutely no way he's going to survive round here with the judo club breathing down his neck.
Have a good squiz at how the vibe shifts right here. In a split second, everyone started sweating bullets when someone told them to back off, and they listened straight away.
Thinking they were bloody dead meat because the one and only Yoonam had just rocked up to the scene.
Jum is still absolutely smashing the blokes in the crowd.
And Subin knows he's got to stop him, since Yoonam could get in massive trouble for another fight. This frustrates the hell out of him because he reckons he's just a miserable coward.
Though Yoonam just walked over to ask Yoon to get the hell away from her desk.
Yoon hasn't got a clue why people keep sneaking up behind him.
But his attack missed by a mile. Before he could even react, Yoonam grabbed his arm, flipped him over, and brutally slammed him straight into the floor.
June was knocked out cold on the spot. Yoonam wants to know what on earth happened to get her desk completely wrecked, asking if they all had a bloody death wish.
Just a bit before all that went down, a few blokes went over to warn everyone that a scrap had kicked off in Class 2. The kid who was gaming started smacking Tyann to wake him up because a fight was going down right where Yoonam was.
That got Tyann jumping up straight away.
Which brings us right to the moment Goonam was about to walk into the classroom, exactly when Tyann rocked up to see what all the fuss was about. Picture his face when he saw Yoon absolutely wiping the floor with those thugs. He felt a massive wave of relief.
So he just spun around because he couldn't care less and asked if anyone had seen Goonam. He admits he couldn't find her in the dorms, so she definitely wagged class.
But Tyann couldn't give a toss about Gampy because he was dead set sure Yoonam would completely lose her mind the second she saw her wrecked desk, and that's exactly what happened. Later on, June woke up in the sickbay. The last thing he remembers is throwing hands with those bullies. So he asked Subin. Subin told him not to stress about those drop kicks. The judo club sorted the whole mess out, though what absolutely gutted him was that June got hurt because of him. Then he handed over his busted glasses. They'd fallen off while they were hauling him to the sickbay in the middle of all the chaos, and someone accidentally stood on him. He sticky taped him up for now, but he promised to pay him back in full real soon. He even brought him some bread. But June completely ignored the glasses,
Revealing he's actually got 20/20 vision. He only wore them to look like a top-notch student, a plan he just completely flushed down the toilet.
Subin was absolutely gobsmacked hearing that and decided to hype him up just in case, saying absolutely anyone would lose against Yoonam. But Yoon couldn't recall ever losing to a single soul in his entire life. Subin cleared it up, telling him Yoonam knocked him out cold with just one hit. And it all suddenly came flooding back to Yoon. Subin told him not to be too hard on himself, because Yoonam is an absolute beast of an athlete.
Yun spat back that he only got taken down because he dropped his guard. Absolute rubbish.
At the end of the day, nobody expects to get chucked around like that. Plus, he didn't even cop any serious damage.
Subin already had a hunch about that, because word is Yoonam held on to him right till the last second so he wouldn't get hurt on the way down.
That absolutely ticked Yun off. Just hearing that woman's name drives him up the wall. He's planning to teach her a lesson. On the flip side, she's out there running her guts out to build up her stamina.
Remembering how a teacher told her they'd let it slide as if it was just kids from another class stirring up trouble, but they made it crystal clear she better not get involved in any more fights.
You and I can see it plain as day. All that raging anger is because she could actually lose her bloody hard-earned spot on the national team.
And if she keeps going like this, her chances at the National Sports Festival will go straight down the drain.
Stick around, mates, because a few days later, someone reckons there's something totally unheard of going down.
Up until now, everyone would leg it in absolute terror from just one death stare from Yoonam. Worked an absolute treat it did. But out of nowhere, this bloke rocks up and he's not fazed by her at all.
Matter of fact, even after coping an absolute hiding the first time, this new bloke kept stepping up to Yoonam for days on end. His persistence is just bloody mental.
The bloke in the black shirt reckons he hasn't caught wind of the rumours. Everyone's saying June has fallen head over heels for Yoonam.
even going so far as to confess that she's the absolute love of his life.
This left everyone else absolutely gobsmacked. Unam caught wind of all this, and she is not amused in the slightest.
But then this one girl pointed out that Unam acts way different around June compared to everyone else. She's been a hell of a lot quieter lately.
She's actually rocking up to school early, and get this, she's not even looking to get into a scrap with anyone. Another girl chimes in saying she heard people spotted Unam sneaking in and out of the sick bay where June was resting up. That can only mean one thing, Unam's crushing on him too.
And to top it all off, June strolled right into the classroom and told Unam he couldn't catch a wink of sleep last night because of her.
Now pay close attention to this bit. He tells her he's still got heaps to teach her, and the girls instantly go red in the face, imagining all sorts of cheeky things, which just completely pushes Cunam over the edge.
So she shut up from her chair and marched right up to Jan.
He started to brick it a little bit, and the rest of the mob have already made up their minds that this is definitely a full-blown romance.
Once they were outside, she slammed him into the dirt without even breaking a sweat and away from everyone's prying eyes.
She demanded to know if he was doing all this on purpose, because he'd been spouting absolute rubbish in front of everyone for days.
She swears to God if he spouts one more piece of crap like that, she will personally crush him to a pulp. As she storms off, Subin admits he tailed them out here because he was worried, but it looks like everything's sweet.
Some other blokes spotted Una mucking around with the new kid she dumped on his ass on the first day of class. The teacher actually rang up the club captain, telling him to step in and put a lid on it.
They've already got heaps of people itching to report the judo club for just straight up violence.
And it'd be a massive headache if Unam cops a suspension just because of that bloody idiot. The club captain's got the message loud and clear, considering he's been told 1,000 bloody times. But at the end of the day, if they're kicking off their own drama, his hands are totally tied. Plus, he actually reckons the kid's got serious guts, and he's totally here for it.
A bit later on, June is racking his brain trying to figure out why he keeps getting absolutely flogged by Gunam.
Subin reckons it's pretty standard, seeing as the bloke doesn't have a clue about judo, even with the teacher chewing them out for causing a ruckus.
Jin wants to know how the hell he's supposed to actually beat her, so Subin breaks it down for him, explaining that he absolutely cannot let Gunam control his center of gravity.
Because at the end of the day, judo is all about chucking your opponent. If he doesn't want to get launched across the room, he's got to stay loose and roll with the punches, depending on the situation. June says that all sounds way too bloody complicated. He reckons he just needs to cop the hits and then land one solid punch. But Subin tells him to picture it like a wave at the beach. I know what you mob are thinking. Sounds completely bonkers. If you tense up, the waves are just going to completely wipe you out. But if you actually surf that wave, you could ride it for miles. And dodging is basically the exact same gig. Just standing there like a stunned mullet won't do you any favours. Instead, you've got to switch directions the split second you feel the momentum shift. Take all that energy and make it your own. Otherwise, you'll never stand a chance against getting dumped on your ass.
Later that night, June spent hours studying judo matches. The very next day, he didn't waste a single second before rocking up to challenge Unam again. The moment she spun around to tell him to piss off, she had to duck a massive full-on punch.
Now he's standing there, absolutely wanting the ground to swallow him whole. He feels like his ability to actually learn anything is just straight up garbage. But this time round, June actually grabbed her wrist, locking her dead on the spot. The judo club captain lost his absolute mind when he saw that.
Meanwhile, Marta was stressing out hardcore because the two of them were completely clashing. She picked up straight away that this bloke had shifted all of his weight right to the back.
June yelled over to Subin to watch this really closely. He reckoned the only weakness of someone as flawless as
her is getting way too cocky. And with that, he went right ahead and tossed Unam, who'd definitely gotten a bit too big for her boots. He's finally out to make her pay for dumping him earlier.
But that's exactly when he realised Unam was a hell of a lot heavier than he'd bargained for, which gave him absolute heaps of trouble trying to finish the takedown.
So she just twisted her body around and ended up slamming him into the dirt with absolutely zero mercy. John was absolutely gutted about losing yet again.
Unam, on the other hand, just stayed dead quiet. But the club captain, he was suddenly super keen on June. Next minute, this super important lady rocks up to the scene. She drags the lot of them into the office, just to go off on a tangent about how the judo club is a total breeding ground for thugs and violence.
Turns out her name's Yonja, the supervisor for the first years, and she reckons they're just a pack of meatheads who only understand the language of getting physical.
And that brings us to the end, mates. She gave Unam a hard warning that she'd be copping serious disciplinary action if she got caught throwing hands again. Come check out this absolute madness with me. The teacher reckoned he couldn't give a toss about the sports festival, but Unam cleared that right up. He actually really wanted to go, but then Jongha snapped at them, saying she couldn't care less if he was some rising star or a gold medalist.
A student's duty is to keep their dignity intact.
Because morals come first, and they didn't want troublemakers like them around. June tried to defend himself, saying he was the new bloke at school. So he offered to scrub the toilets, which earned him a massive earful from Jong-ha for having the guts to cut her off.
She fired back that dignity is taught at home and a fence needs to be complete to hold up.
But if half of it's missing, it's no wonder they turn out to be total idiots. June was absolutely fuming. That sounded like a seriously low blow.
While Yunam, dripping with sarcasm, apologised for growing up with a broken fence and only learning her manners from her teachers, so she guessed she still had a hell of a lot to learn from her.
Jong-ha absolutely lost it when she caught the veiled insult, but Hank stepped in just in the nick of time to stick up for his judo club member.
While the teachers kept bickering, Yunam and June stepped out into the hallway,
where he asked if all the teachers yelled like that. They'd literally been treated like they'd burn the whole bloody school down. She completely blanked him, and this is where things get tense, so pay attention. Hank came out of the office to sort out the drama and told them they'd be doing community service every afternoon for a week. That was the deal, to avoid getting expelled, so they had to clean up without a single whinge. Even though Yunam couldn't hide how pissed off she was, Hank stood his ground. 0 training until she finished her service hours every single day.
And as for June, he had to cop it on the chin. This whole mess was his fault.
Yunam swallowed her pride and agreed, saying goodbye and calling him her older brother.
That completely threw June off, and Hank could see that Yunam was absolutely fuming.
Which is fair enough, mate. We're talking about a girl who is hardcore obsessed with training.
Not that June gave a toss about that, so he decided to take off. Right then, Hank offered him a spot in the cob.
And an offer like that left June dead set speechless. But there was no time for that. He had to go serve his punishment.
While he was cleaning, he thought back to what Hank had said. He told him he had guts to spare and a heap of hidden talent. And that was exactly why he wanted to give him this bloody brilliant opportunity. June didn't waste any time shooting it down. He couldn't care less about judo. Tough luck for Hank, who then told him to stop winding Yunam up. June had no clue where that came from.
And Hank made it clear that he wasn't looking down on his drive to fight.
But Yunam was fighting a brutal battle all on her own. She couldn't afford to waste her energy fighting some random newbie at school.
Snapping back to the present, they kept working their guts out until the chores were done, and both of them headed out the school gates. June then remembered Hank, the head of the judo club. He reckoned June should swing by the club if he wanted a rematch. And I know what you're thinking. Is he going to go? Bloody oath he is. Hank had made it crystal clear that he was always welcome to throw down, as long as he followed the rules.
As they were walking, June thought the most important thing right now was to crush the rival right in front of him, so he challenged Yunam to one more fight.
Yunam didn't even bother turning her head to look at him. And June figured she was still spooked by those miserable teachers. When she didn't say a word, he chucked a punch at her, but stopped dead when she didn't even flinch.
Yunam dared him, told him to hit her. After all, his big goal was to take her down, wasn't it?
She stared him dead in the eyes, demanding he take the shot and calling him a gutless coward. June thought she was taking the piss, but Yunam repeated that she'd let him win, saying there was no reason to get angry. June's blood was absolutely boiling, and Yunam just sighed, telling him he didn't get it at all. Basically, she didn't have the time of day to be trading punches with some average high school kid. She already had way too much crap on her plate, trying to sort out all her own bloody personal problems by herself. So she gave him a choice, either hit her right now or rack off so he wouldn't waste her time. Which jogged June's memory about Hank's warning regarding her struggles. June just burst out laughing. Yunam knew straight away that he wasn't going to do a damn thing. Reminding him she'd given him the green light to take a swing. Since he dogged it, she told him to never bother her again. June, absolutely spewing with frustration, locked his eyes on the judo club. Thinking back to Subi, it only made sense he lost since he didn't know the first thing about judo. That's exactly why he barged through those doors, yelling at Yunam that they weren't done yet.
And that he was coming to absolutely crush her on her own turf.
But Taeyang rocked up right behind him to kick him out. He had no business being there, and normal students were strictly banned from stepping foot inside.
The club members could see Taeyang was well and truly pissed off. Hank just chuckled. You and I both know this is about to get bloody epic. Even though the bloke in black asked who that bloody thug was. Check this out, because Hank explained that this kid does community service with Yunam. Since he kept trying to pick a fight with her, she told him to rock up to the club to square off by the rules. Tyann was absolutely ropeable. Jung thought this club was a bloody joke and that he could just waltz right in. Meanwhile, Hank cracked a smug smile, since Yoon and Tyann seemed to be in the exact same weight class. The bloke made it crystal clear he wouldn't let any troublemakers in. He wanted to know what the bloody hell Tyen was doing at the entrance, to which he replied that he was just dealing with an annoying little pest.
Yun demanded that Yunam come out and fight. This pissed the bloke off, because in this dojo, things are sorted out using pure judo. If he wants to brawl like a wild animal, he can bugger off, but if he's after a fair go,
he's got to pass the entrance exam first. A few minutes later, Yun cracked up laughing, reckoning that absolutely anything looks good on him. The bloke couldn't figure out what that disaster of a belt was all about. The guy with glasses confessed that Marta had tied it for him, but Yun went and messed with it himself just to show off.
Tyen is absolutely over having to run his bloody entrance exam.
But the bloke reminded him that he'd been cleaning way too much lately. He ordered him to take it easy, since Yun is just a clueless newbie.
Yun had said he wanted to take on Yunam. If he passes this test, he can fight her as much as he wants in here, and the conditions are dead simple.
You just need to take Tyen down in under 5 minutes flat on the clock.
Tyen asked why he was giving him so much time. The bloke ignored him, letting Yin know they were just sizing up his true potential.
So you don't need to stress about using proper technique, you just got to remember and stick to these rules.
Listen up, because this is key. No striking or intentionally injuring your opponent, and absolutely no grabbing the legs.
Yun got ready to scrap. Tyen asked if he was a southpaw. Yun thought it was bloody pointless for him to know that, and right as the starting signal went off,
he charged straight in. Tyen dodged his grabs without breaking a sweat, taking the opening to drop him with a cheeky little trip to the foot.
Right then and there, he told him to chill out. But Yun hopped right back up. He tried to take him down again, but Tyen just used his momentum to spin him, pulling off another brutal throw.
Yun got properly pissed off because they weren't taking him seriously. Tyen denied it. Fact is, Yun's the one not taking it seriously.
A bloke named Choi was absolutely frothing, since it had been ages since he'd seen Tyen fight. But another bloke, Onuk, reckoned it wasn't anything flash. After all, because you and I are about to see something bloody incredible.
Tyen hardly ever rocks up to practice, and his grades are absolute rubbish. Chonga confessed he thought the only lightweight thing about him was his body weight, but saw his head was totally empty too. He made it clear that unlike him, Taeyang couldn't give a toss about grades. Over in the Gunam women's division, she is the absolute best, and in the men's.
It was Tyen who completely wiped the floor at the Youth Sports Festival, and Yun is copping the brunt of that superiority.
He's even wondering what the bloody hell he's doing right now. Time flew by until there was only 2.5 minutes left. Every single takedown attempt flopped, until, blind with rage, he threw a punch.
Which Tyen blocked, no worries at all.
With a sweep of his legs, he sent Yin flying again, scoring another takedown. He didn't hesitate to dob him into the bloke for throwing punches, reckoning it'd be best to just give him the boot right then and there.
I know exactly what you're thinking. The bloke warned he'd be disqualified if he punched Tyen, which left Yun absolutely itching to bash him.
Hank walked right up to him and asked if he'd ever boxed before.
But his surprise pop-up just made Yun even more furious. He couldn't figure out why Hank was trying to be so chummy, and snapped back that he'd never learned a thing.
Hank thought that was bloody ridiculous, in case he hadn't heard the rules properly.
He just had to take his opponent down to win. That's it. He told him straight not to try and copy things he doesn't quite get yet.
He should stick to what he's actually good at. Tyen dobbed him into the bloke because they were having a chinwag in the middle of an official bout.
So Yun had to snap back into the fight. Now he's chucked everything out the window to come up with his own game plan.
Yunan was absolutely gobsmacked seeing what he was trying to pull off. He'd just taken up a pure boxing stance, something everyone thought was downright stupid, since he'd just get himself disqualified on the spot.
On top of that, his centre of gravity is way too high. At this rate, he's going to get wiped off the map again.
Even Tyen reckoned this was total rubbish, though he did get a fright seeing he was about to cop a hit, so he instinctively threw his hands up to cover his face.
Yun just mocked him. It was only a feint. Now he went all in for the takedown, showing off a lethal speed that took Tyen completely by surprise.
Yun struggled hard but couldn't budge him a single millimetre until he spotted his foot. To everyone's shock, he tried to hook it dead on to bring him down.
A solid move, according to Tyen, but with a picture-perfect spin, he completely reversed the throw.
Mate, trust me, you and I both know what's coming next. There are only 5 seconds left on the clock, and Yuan doesn't seem to have a ghost of a chance with these takedowns.
Come along with me, because we're about to see Tyen ask him what he's going to do with the little time he's got left. June was absolutely fuming at being treated like a little kid. The coach gave him a massive earful, reminding him this wasn't some street brawl and flat out banning him from throwing punches.
To top it all off, he hadn't even cracked her defensive stance.
If he wanted in, he had to tuck his chin and actually attack properly. June was absolutely ropeable, screaming that they told him he just had to take her down.
Plus, the chick was whinging like mad when he hadn't even laid a finger on her.
That pissed the head coach off even more, seeing as the kid was showing absolutely zero respect.
Hank was cacking himself laughing watching the coach's masterclass, though he did give June props for trying to copy a sweep. Four Eyes chimed in, saying he was just using brute force.
So calling that a technique was being way too generous. And he still couldn't wrap his head around why they were testing him when they didn't even know if the kid actually wanted to do judo.
Hank told him not to be such a downer. It was just a test, so they were better off waiting it out. At the end of the day, you never know if something seriously epic might happen.
Four Eyes thought he was being super naive, calling him captain.
Tyann gave June the chance to chuck in the towel since there were only 5 seconds left. June made it crystal clear she had it all wrong. He hadn't rocked up to join this club full of clowns.
In reality, he'd only come out of pure stubborn pride. Tyann bluntly told him that was bloody useless.
Because his pride wouldn't win him the match in 5 seconds, but June warned her that if it didn't happen today,
it'd be tomorrow. He'd keep coming back until he beat the absolute crap out of her, whether it was for Gyunam or for himself. Talk about being pig-headed.
So they'd better brace themselves. He was going to make damn sure his name was burned into their brains. Tyann wasn't amused by this at all.
It would only make her life a massive pain in the neck. She couldn't understand why he was busting his gut when he was obviously going to fail, so she decided to take the quickest, most painless route possible.
Keep your eyes peeled here, because the second they announced the match was back on,
Tyann landed a straight punch right on June. Not even her own teammates knew how the hell to react. A dead, chilling silence completely took over the room.
Even June was totally bewildered. Out of nowhere, Tyann announced she was forfeiting, wrapping up the match with a bow.
Then she congratulated June on passing the entrance exam. She literally only did that so he'd stop pestering her. June got so riled up about it that Hank had to physically hold him back.
The next day, Subin asked him if it was true he'd actually signed up for judo. June flat out denied it.
Bummer for Subin, who'd bought into the rumours that he was so bloody incredible he'd forced his opponent to get disqualified.
June doubled down, insisting he never had any intention of joining.
He just wanted to smash Gyunam. He remembered that right after his fight with Tyann, he was fuming. In fact, he almost binned his judo uniform right then and there.
But he stopped and took a real good look at it.
You can probably guess what happens next. He started going over the moves in his head, figured they weren't that big of a deal, and reckoned he could actually pull it off. And yeah, Hank had told him judo was sick. To snap himself out of it, June gave himself a solid smack across the face. For starters, he didn't need any stupid sport, though he did notice that the judo club crew were MIA.
Subin explained that they had a judo comp on today, so none of them were going to be in class.
Right at that moment, June got a call asking when he was handing in his registration, dropping the bombshell that Hank was the bloody judo captain. Plus, there was no point running away anymore. They demanded he man up and face the music once and for all. John made it crystal clear again that he wasn't joining.
But Hank threatened to take drastic measures if he kept dodging them. June told him to delete his number because he was giving off major creep vibes. Hank hung up,
reminding him it was his call. June got a bit spooked and suddenly some blokes in suits barged right into the classroom. The students were tripping out seeing these suited up agents crash the place. They made a beeline for June, who had no bloody clue why they were after him. The boss of the crew warned him they were going to steal a bit of his time. In the blink of an eye, they shoved June into a stretch limo. He didn't put up a fight because he figured they'd end up chucking him in a bin bag. A little while later, Hank himself welcomed him aboard. Jun wanted to know where the hell they were and why they'd kidnapped him. The head agent told Hank he could give them a buzz whenever he needed. Hank told June he didn't leave him any choice, seeing as he was scurrying away like a rat. He told him to look straight ahead. There were some guys freaking out seeing the students from Yon High there. They quickly locked their eyes on Gyunam, the absolute beast who dominates the 70-kilo division.
It's the first time they're laying eyes on that monster, and trust me, you and I would be praying we never cross paths with a beast like that. Hank revealed that this is one Brucian tournament.
Settle in with me, because I swear you won't regret it. This is going to be a bloody incredible show.
Walking into the venue, June was absolutely stunned. There were way more people packed in there than he'd ever imagined.
The bloke with the glasses asked Hank where on earth he'd been. Hank replied that he had to hunt down this idiot who kept doing runners, so he decided to drag him all the way here to witness something truly epic.
Jern instantly tried to shove him off. Right then, Jehun reminded Hank that the coach was already down on the mats. He couldn't just ditch his seat like that.
After all, he's the captain and needs to set a good example. But Hank couldn't care less. The only thing that mattered right now was watching Marta's match.
June flipped out when he saw her. That's the girl who's always hanging around Unum. Honestly, he didn't think she had a hope in hell looking at those absolute units she was up against.
At this rate, she's going to get tossed halfway across the room in no time.
But surprise, it was Marta who took her rival down with absolutely flawless technique. June never imagined that girl was hiding such beastly strength.
Hank noticed that brought back some memories. He explained it was called a one-arm shoulder throw, and that's exactly what it looks like when pulled off to perfection.
It was super close to the takedown he tried on Unum, except Marta actually nailed it. June quickly figured out that Hank just loves taking the piss.
June gave a heads up that he'd be back in a sec.
Hank wished him luck for the finals and grabbed the chance to tell June some absolute gold gossip.
Turns out Taiyan got knocked out in the prelims this time. He was standing there staring like a complete drongo at Unam's match, racked up 3 penalties in a row, and bam, defeat by automatic disqualification.
June was dead set speechless hearing that. Though, well, he later admitted it's exactly what you'd expect from a brainless idiot.
And if he actually learns how to fight properly, Taiyan will be nothing but a bug to him.
In that case, Hank asked him when he was planning to actually start training for real.
But June flat out refused to join. Now don't blink, because Hank told him to watch the next fight closely. This right here is where you and I find out what makes judo so bloody addictive.
Jihoon won his match no worries in the 73 kilo division,
earning himself a massive round of applause from Hank, while June showed a genuine interest in that absolute display of talent.
Chonga ended up losing in the 78 kilo division, putting a damper on the party. But then Choi absolutely wrecked house in the over 100 kilos division thanks to a brutal armbar.
And Yerk wiped the floor with his opponent in the 60 kilo division, pulling off a lethal chokehold.
This left June absolutely gobsmacked. He had no clue you could even do stuff like that. He started thinking that maybe this sport wasn't half bad after all.
A few minutes later, heaps of reporters rushed to get their cameras ready because the real show was about to start.
Joan couldn't wrap his head around what all the fuss was about, but it didn't take him long to realize everyone was there to see Unam. He just stood there staring right at her,
making their eyes lock. And right then, the ref called the start of the match.
Unam wasted zero time and closed the gap. June watched, completely fascinated by how they kept their feet moving non-stop to keep a solid base.
Her opponent tried to lock in a hook, but it didn't work on the first crack.
The poor bloke got seriously rattled when he felt just how good she was.
So out of sheer desperation, he threw another hook. Massive mistake. Unam used his own momentum against him, slipped past his guard, and took him down with absolutely exquisite technique.
The crowd went absolutely feral over a display like that. Even June couldn't hide his hype. Did you feel that adrenaline rush just like I did? Hank was cracking up, proving that judo was actually a bloody good time.
Later on in the day, everyone started clearing out of the venue. Turns out the coach went to say good day to the Seongban High coach, so the boys decided to wait for him outside.
Taiyan couldn't figure out why Unam was so stoked over just winning a medal. Plus, he swore she only got it because of him.
He kept claiming that even Marta herself said she snagged that medal thanks to his support.
Marta flat out denied it, but they got cut off by June, who called out to Unam. She spun around looking absolutely fuming, thinking this past was coming over to stir up trouble again.
But to her surprise, Gingers congratulated her and told her she was awesome. Those were words none of them ever expected to hear out of his mouth. Hank and Taiyan instantly snapped to attention. June was asking Unam for a truce, announcing right out loud that he was joining the judo club.
Unam stayed dead quiet for a few seconds before asking him cold as ice why the hell he was telling her that. The other two pulled massive cringe faces, absolutely humiliating poor June.
Unam made it crystal clear that she couldn't give a rat's ass what he did or didn't do.
All she cares about is him leaving her alone. With that, she turned on her heel and walked off, leaving June absolutely filthy that she'd ignored him yet again.
Hank had to hold him back because the clown actually thought he was the main character in a movie, dying of laughter.
He invited him out for some barbecue. Jihoon told them to head off first since he was going to hang back and wait for the coach. Hank promised to flick him the location.
And after they left, Jihoon walked over to a balcony, looking visibly pissed off about June's decision. So tell me, what do you reckon about all this chaos?
Later.
Get ready for this absolute madness. The coach introduced Yoon to the squad, making it crystal clear that since he was the new bloke, everyone had to help him out. Plus, next Saturday, they've got a joint training session with the San Juan High Judo Club. There's going to be friendly matches, so it's time to bust a gut and start sweating buckets right now. And right on top of that, the coach dropped an absolute bombshell on Taiyan. He's officially out of the next comp, and instead, he's tasked with training the new kid one-on-one to build up his fundamentals.
Taiyan tried to flat out refuse.
Yun fired back, saying there was no way he wanted to train with this bloke either,
But the coach just told him to pipe down. He was absolutely sick of dealing with two useless idiots, warning them to shut their traps right then and there unless they wanted a brutal punishment on day one.
From here out,
Tyann is also on cleaning and lockup duty for the dojo. Then he barked at them to start warming up immediately, which meant running 5 laps around the mats.
You and Tyann were going neck and neck, sparking up a fierce rivalry that the coach absolutely loved.
He reckoned they were super fired up, even though Unum just looked at them like they were a couple of total drongos.
Hank actually praised Yoon's stamina, even if he still couldn't quite beat Tyann. Once he gets his basics sorted, this is going to be an absolute bloody riot.
But then Tyann had to open his mouth and brag that beating him was an absolute piece of cake.
Yoon was absolutely seething. Suddenly, everyone started doing forward rolls across the mats, which Yoon thought looked completely bloody ridiculous. Shouldn't they just be focusing on smashing their opponents to the ground?
Chonga told him to get a move on, because the guys out the back were waiting. Now, get a load of this. Yoon pointed out that since Yoon was a rookie, it'd be better if he just sat back and watched. Yoon still couldn't wrap his head around this weird vibe.
But Marta stepped in to give him a hand. She told him all he had to do was copy the bloke in front of him and roll, since running and rolling are just your standard warm-up drills.
It was actually the first time they'd spoken, even though they were in the exact same class. She introduced herself as Marta and offered to help out if he ever got stuck during training.
Yun was stoked to finally meet someone who was actually nice. In fact, she reminded him heaps of Subin. A bit later on, Tyann was ordered to teach him how to do breakfalls.
After a few messy attempts, Tyann couldn't figure out why the hell he kept dropping to the floor like that. Yoon absolutely blew his top. The idiot wasn't even explaining what he was supposed to do. He was just yanking his legs out from under him without saying a single bloody word.
Tyann scoffed, telling him he was meant to do a backward roll, completely baffled that he didn't know how to pull one off.
Hank could see plain as day that Tyann was a rubbish teacher. The coach had no choice but to call Yijin over to show the new kid the ropes on how to fall properly.
Tyann actually mumbled an apology to Yoon for doing such a crap job of teaching him.
Meanwhile, Yijin asked what actually got him into judo. Yoon was dead honest. He just reckoned he'd look pretty badass if he learnt it. Yijin nodded at that, then asked how much he actually knew about breakfalls.
Yun confessed he knew absolutely zero. He'd only heard that it stops you from getting injured when you hit the deck.
Which Yijin confirmed straight away.
Adding that judo is all about chucking your opponent around. So when you're the one getting tossed, doing a proper breakfall spreads the impact across your entire body.
That way you don't get hurt. And most importantly, you protect your head. That's exactly why breakfalls are the absolute basics.
For any kind of fall, the real trick is to tuck your chin in and slap the mat with your whole arm or leg to disperse the force.
For example, you've got your front break fall, your side break fall,
your back break fall, and your forward roll. This got Yoon completely pumped up, especially once he realized it actually hurt way less.
Did you guys see that coming too? Yijin admitted he picked it up incredibly fast, and Yoon was just super grateful to have such an absolute legend teaching him.
Though, to be fair, it was also mostly down to his insane natural talent. Now, he was absolutely itching to learn some flashy new techniques.
He was pretty bloody gutted when Yujin just ordered him to do a massive set of every single breakfall. He didn't give a damn if the kid had talent. Breakfalls are the absolute foundation of judo.
He warned Yun not to get cocky and think they were on the same level just because he learned a couple of basic concepts. He made it crystal clear that his shallow, hot-headed attitude was seriously pissing him off.
Fuming with rage, Yoon accepted the challenge. He asked if he'd teach him a new technique once he finished all the reps, which Yujin agreed to straight away.
Later that night, Tyann told Yoon to stop training and just head home. Plus, he had to lock up the dojo, but Yoon couldn't care less.
Telling him to just rack off. He was staying right there to finish the job. Tyann thought he was an absolute moron. It was physically impossible to knock out 1,000 reps of every single breakfall in one day.
He pointed out that Yijin was only trying to crush his spirit, but Yoon snapped back, saying he was sick to death of everyone looking down on him.
His only goal was to finish these bloody breakfalls once and for all.
So he could learn something new and absolutely wreck the lot of them. Tyann couldn't wrap his head around it, figuring the guy must just love living life on hard mode too.
And that's where we're leaving it. Taishan couldn't give a rat's ass anyway, so he just chucked in the keys and bolted.
Stick around for this crazy ride. The second he walked through the door, he bumped right into Jihan and straight up told him he was taking back every single apology he'd made.
He made it bloody obvious just how pathetic the whole thing was. In the end, it was so sad and boring that he just decided to let it slide.
The next morning, the coach strutted into the dojo, absolutely bursting with pride after seeing how viral Yunam had gone. He was dead keen to rub it right in Coach Choi's face.
Then he got absolutely furious with Taeyan, since he told him 1,000 times to lock up properly. So he reckoned he'd make him run laps until he completely passed out. But suddenly, June popped out of the dojo wishing everyone a good morning. The coach was gobsmacked to see him up so early, realizing the kid took his training dead seriously.
A little while later,
Subin started slapping pain relief patches on June, but his body was so wrecked that he groaned at the slightest touch.
That's when Marta asked him if he'd actually done every single breakfall.
June said yeah, but the security guard had booted him out overnight, so he got up super early to finish off. Marta admitted that pulling off 4,000 breakfalls in 24 hours was bloody impressive.
But pushing yourself to breaking point isn't great either, and his muscles had to be absolutely shot.
Pay attention to this bit, it's serious. He couldn't even handle the patches. Marta warned him that he could get seriously injured going on like this.
Plus, getting a proper rest is part of the training too, so he really needed to take it easy. June knew she was dead right.
But he needed to pick up techniques fast to smash the competition. For some reason, he felt like he was losing his edge.
Even so, since all the breakfalls were officially done, he agreed to take a day off.
However, Junam couldn't understand why they were making such a massive fuss over a bit of hard yucca. He told him to head over to the sickbay so his groaning wouldn't bother anyone else.
Ewan wasn't about to put up with being treated like that. He told his day off to get stuffed and decided to jump straight back into training,
swearing to show them what a seriously quick promotion looked like. In there, he spotted Jihan having a yarn with Hank. Hank was stoked to see him, considering they were just talking about his crazy stunt.
Yun quickly proved that he'd completely knocked over the 4,000 breakfalls. Because of that, he demanded they teach him a brand new technique.
But Hank just cracked up laughing. He couldn't believe the bloke had actually finished them, proving once again that he was an absolute madman.
He gave him a few solid pats on the back, telling him he really needed to switch his brain off every now and then. With that said, he left the two of them alone to train. Yak was pretty shocked to see Yun back. He admitted he fully expected him to bail after a single day, meaning he'd held out way better than he thought.
You had no clue what his problem was. He'd copped that attitude right from the start, and if he was picking a fight, they could easily sort it out with their fists right then and there.
Yuke told him to keep dreaming. The public would absolutely tear him apart if an athlete went around bashing a civilian.
But if he was up against the yellow belt, he'd definitely think twice. The big bloke, Choi Yan, cooled the tension by dragging Yun Yak away.
Though he did tell Yun to give his judogi a good wash because it absolutely reeked. That rubbed Yun the wrong way, but he had to admit he'd sweated an absolute bucket yesterday. A bit later, Ji-hoon asked him if he seriously had everything under perfect control.
Yun backed it up straight away. He reminded him about the promise to teach him a new technique if he managed to beat that brutal challenge.
Ji-hoon gave him a heads up that he was going to throw him with a new technique. Get a load of this. He slammed him brutally into the mats. You guys felt that thud too, didn't you?
Yun couldn't even peel himself off the floor thanks to the unbearable muscle pain. Chonga thought Ji-hoon was being way too rough. Meanwhile, Ji-hoon was giving Yun an absolute earful for calling that total garbage a perfect fall.
Jun kicked up a massive fuss. The bloke hadn't even told him what throw he was going to use, so of course he had no bloody idea what to do in the moment.
The worst part was that they'd been going at it like this since yesterday. That's exactly why he wouldn't stop begging him to teach him. He just wanted to learn the exact same way they did.
Those words did not sit well with Ji-hoon at all.
Yoon fired back that they were all just a bunch of high school students learning judo. At the end of the day, they weren't so different that he had any right to treat him like dirt.
Ji-hoon grabbed him by the jidogi, asking if he really thought he could just waltz in there like it was nothing. The rest of the guys quickly realized this was about to turn into a full-on brawl.
So they needed to break them up and fast. June demanded he cut the crap and just explain what he'd actually done wrong. Ji-hoon coldly shot back that it was all about merit and he had absolutely zero.
Quite the opposite, actually.
Every single bloke in that room had worked their guts out just to get into the judo club.
Outside, the coach greeted Coach Choi and immediately started bragging about how bloody well Yunam was doing. That ticked Choi off because if it wasn't for Mr.
Gone, Yunam would have been enrolled at school. He quickly made it clear he was only dropping by to sort out the schedule before the joint practice. And trust me, what comes next is absolutely epic. By the way, this kid is a massive fan of Gunnam.
Get a load of this. The coach reckons it's completely normal because his Gonyam is pretty damn special. Plus, all his boys are tough as nails.
I bet right now they're training like absolute beasts.
Meanwhile, Ju made it crystal clear to Yoon that he hasn't achieved a single thing, but he's still got the bloody nerve to claim they're on the same level.
The tension stopped dead in its tracks when the coach rocked up, asking what the hell they were doing. Both blokes had to pull their heads in straight away.
And while they were going at it, the rookie Choi brought in asked the main character if his name was June. That's a wrap for today's recap, mates.
Chuck us a like and drop a comment to help us bring you heaps more awesome content.
And trust me, you're going to want to see what happens next. Catch you soon.
Cheers.